Hello, welcome to Build Series. I'm HuffPost Lee Blickley, and it's hard not to notice Sydney Sweeney these days. The young actor has been in everything from Everything Sucks and The Handmaid's Tale to Sharp Objects, and has stood out in each role she's taken on. Now she's in Euphoria, a show focused on a group of high school students as they grapple with issues of drugs, sex, and violence. Sydney is here to talk about her character Cassie Howard, but first, let's take a look at a clip.
What?
Nothing.
Why do you keep staring at me?
I'm sorry. Kind of spaced out for a second. I wasn't being weird, was I?
No, you're being cute.
Listen, I don't want to sound corny or whatever, but you are literally the most beautiful girl I've ever seen.
Let's welcome Sydney Sweeney. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I have to say, I've been super impressed by what I've seen from you in your career so far, and I really want to get to know you a little bit more. So can you tell me and us about how you got started in acting and how you knew you wanted to be an actress?
Well, I always knew, but my parents never believed me. It was like I wanted to be a princess in some fairy tale land, and they were like, this is not possible. And I grew up in a small town, so it was like this crazy idea that would never come true. And when I was about 12 years old, this small movie came to town, and I found out about it at school. And I asked my parents if I could audition. They're like, no, what are you talking about? So I created this 5-year business plan presentation of what could happen if they let me audition for this movie. And they were like, okay, maybe she's a little more serious than we thought. And I ended up booking it.
It's amazing. What was this movie?
I honestly don't even remember. It was just like this it was like a funny horror indie movie, and I fell in love with being on set. My parents saw how happy I was about it and dedicated, and they're like, okay, maybe we should support her.
So where were you living at this time? Where did you grow up?
Spokane, Washington.
Okay, so it was a small town. So then did you move to LA or New York when you decided to...
We would bounce back and forth between Seattle for a little bit because there was like this commercial area, and then we started going to Portland for a little bit more, and then finally went down to LA for pilot season.
That's amazing. And so you didn't have any training, it was just kind of within you?
Just did it.
That's amazing. That you already knew that you wanted. Were you, as a kid, were you imaginative, and did you...
I had a crazy imaginary world. I mean, I would have different sections in my backyard be different worlds, and different rooms in my house be different places, and hopefully I wasn't crazy, but I had a lot of imaginary friends.
Great. So what have you learned so far about being in the business? Because I'm sure your first foray into pilot season had to be really interesting and sort of scary, I'm sure.
It was really scary. I mean, it's a completely different world, growing up in a small town and then going to this huge city with all these people from all over the world. And you're kind of thrown into this entire industry as a young kid, and you had to be an adult. Mm-hmm. So I learned very fast the importance of being able to handle yourself in a room with grown men, and how to handle yourself in a situation like this, and how to speak properly. So it was a quick learning experience. Yeah.
So did you book Everything Sucks pretty shortly after you started going?
No, it took a few years. I went to LA when I was like 14, and I didn't get Everything Sucks till I was 18 and a half. So I had a few years of indies and guest star roles and co-star roles, and yeah.
And so how was it when you actually did book Everything Sucks and it was on Netflix and it was this big platform? Did you notice right away that, oh, like this has maybe propelled me a little bit further into what I want to do?
Oh, definitely. What's interesting actually is I booked Sharp Objects first, and I was filming Sharp Objects for a couple months, and then I booked Everything Sucks, and I had to work out with Netflix and HBO, like, how do I film both of these at the same time? And Everything Sucks ended up coming out before Sharp Objects. Okay. And that was just a crazy, fun experience. I mean, everybody loved Emmeline and Kemmeline, and I really missed that storyline.
And then, of course, Sharp Objects, you were in, I think it was an episode, right? But you were acting across from Amy Adams, which is pretty amazing. What was that experience like, and what did you take away from working with her?
I mean, she's an amazing actress. I've always looked up to her. She's an amazing role model. She's a mother, and just being able to sit there and learn from her, watching her act, and listening to her speak about just her life in general was amazing, better than any acting class you could ever ask for. And we just would dive into our characters, and sometimes Jean-Marc Vallée wouldn't call cut, and we would just be living in these scenes without dialogue and just continue it. And I love when you're able to do that with an actor and just work off of one another.
Yeah, because that's his style too. Vallée likes to just keep continuing, right?
And
the
many
shoot.
times you don't know where the camera is because he likes natural lighting, so there's no equipment really anywhere, and you're just in this world and you don't know where the camera is sometimes, and you're just living it. And I love when an actor is given that capability.
Yeah, and Alice that was a dark role to take on, and you've been really brave with the choices that you've made. Is that something that you like to do? Is kind of test your own limits, but maybe experiment a little bit with the roles you take? Everyone is a bit different.
I definitely like to change it up. I like characters that scare me and are completely different than myself because I like a challenge. And I like being able to learn and experience about these different characters because I feel like that gives me the ability to connect to other people in the world. And I've always wanted to be there for others through characters, even though they might not make the right choices.
Yeah, I know. I felt that way too with The Handmaid's Tale was such an interesting character and such a show kind of the moment where it's talking about a lot that's going on in the world, unfortunately. What was it like, though, to be in Eden's head? Because she was placed like in this situation of this dystopian...
She was a true believer. I mean, she grew up in this dystopian society and she didn't know anything else. So it was really interesting seeing fans hate her, but I felt so much sympathy for her because she didn't know what she was doing wrong. She didn't know what she believed in was wrong because that's all she knew. And sometimes you look at that in the world, like some kids grow up a certain way and like you have to put yourself in their shoes to sometimes understand the way they think. And so for Eden, it was just this world that's all she knew and she didn't know anything else.
Yeah. And what was for you, there was great reaction from your final episode on Handmaids. What was it like to kind of be at the center of some of that conversation for a little while? Is it powerful to be a part of a show that gets people talking?
Of course. I mean, you never know what people are going to think of your character or how they're going to take it. So when everybody started actually feeling for Eden, and in the end they were like, oh my gosh, we loved Eden and we feel so sorry for her. That was such a powerful point for me because at first everybody hated her and I was like, oh gosh. And then having a character that people fall in love with, it's really cool to have an arc like that.
Yeah. And so when after Handmaids did you book Euphoria? Was it kind of like because you did Sharp Objects, was HBO kind of aware of who you were for the show?
No, I mean, I think that Sam, our creator, he looked at everybody. It didn't matter what you've been in, who you are. He just wanted to find the people who were right for the characters. And I actually put myself on tape for it. Oh, cool. And I got it off my tape. I didn't have to go in again. And we filmed the pilot. And then I went and filmed Big Time Adolescence. And I found out on the set of Big Time that we got picked up for the first season. And we went straight into filming it.
And did you know that when you sent your tape in, was it for Cassie Howard? Or
it was for Cassie.
Okay. What was it about Cassie that sort of drove you to try out for her and to play her on the show?
Just reading the pilot alone. I mean, she's not in much of the pilot, so I had to look at like the whole picture of the entirety of the show. And I fell in love with the rawness and the situations and the emotions that all these characters go through. And I knew that I wanted to be a part of this show.
Yeah, so what this show is, it's a really deep look into high school, and it kind of touches on a lot of things that not everybody talks about with sex and drugs and all of that, what we don't see as parents or, when I look back on my time in high school. What did that kind of drive you to do this show? It was a really raw look at this group and kind of touching on topics that not many people...
I mean, I always tend to find things that scare me. And I think that there hasn't been a TV show that has really represented a real look at growing up today. And I wanted to be a part of something like that. And Cassie, when I booked it, I was speaking to Sam about my character. I was like, what else happens to Cassie? Like, I want to know the full arc of her. And when he told me her arc, I absolutely fell in love. And I can't say it right now because it hasn't come out yet. But it was just a very powerful thing for me. And I definitely wanted to bring that to life.
Yeah. Because what we've seen of Cassie so far is, you know, she's sweet and she's a popular girl. She's a cheerleader. So what else is there to discover with Cassie for us as a viewer? Because right now, yeah, we haven't seen everything, and I know you can't give too much away.
Yeah, I mean, what I really loved about Cassie is if many people would read the page, you'll see the stereotypical, oh, she's a blonde, sexual, popular teenage girl. But really, there's so many layers to her, and she's gone through so much that you'll see in her episode, because every episode's a different character. So in episode 7, it's Cassie, and you get to see where she came from and her history and her life, and you start to realize that there's way more that she is dealing with. And I wanted to have a character that has so many layers, like Eden or Alice or Emmeline, and I was really drawn to that.
Yeah, was that fun to kind of play in the fact that you have all of these episodes that you're, you know, a little part of, but then you have one episode that truly just focuses on your character where you could
It's really cool, and I love it because we get to learn so much about each character. Yeah. And every table read would be like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And that was such a fun experience to have. Yeah.
And I do want to talk about, you know, the unfiltered side of the show, which is just, it's very raw. There's a lot of nudity and sexuality. As a young woman in Hollywood, did any of that make you uncomfortable at first? Did you have to kind of put all of that aside and be like, this is for, you know, the job? Because I'm curious.
You know, I don't know if uncomfortable is the right word. I was timid at first because I've never done anything like that before. And I definitely had a very sit-down conversation with my mom about it. But the thing about the nudity in this show is that it's not glamorized. It's not, oh, here's a pair of tits. And it's just real. When you're having sex, you get naked. And there's so much storyline around that if you're just watching it for the nudity, then you're watching it for the wrong reasons. And I think that's just, I mean, we're teenagers.
Yeah, of course. And you're 21,
Yes.
But then playing somebody who's, 16, 17. Was it weird for you to kind of think back? Because I know, were you in school or did you kind of miss that part of high school because you were acting?
I continued school. I think education's very important. My mom was very strict with me on school. I was valedictorian.
Wow.
So
impressive.
School was like always number one. Didn't matter what I was working on, even continue with college.
That's great.
And so most of my characters are young, so I don't feel 21, if that makes sense.
You're like, I'm a teenager
I'm still stuck playing a 16-year-old for the rest of my life. So it wasn't that hard to dive into that.
Yeah. But at least Cassie is, you know, we've seen a lot of depictions of teenagers. And I have to say over the past 4 to 5 years, we've gotten a little bit more complex groups of women and men and young men and shows like 13 Reasons Why and now Euphoria. Was it important for you to have a teenage character that felt like a fully fledged, you know, woman on screen?
Yes, I always look for characters that hopefully will develop into a more powerful symbol. Like Emmeline became this amazing character for people, and Alice really stuck with people in Eden. And I hope that as Cassie's storyline progresses, that she becomes that symbol for people as well.
And how about the cast? You guys like have important conversations among each other. I know you have Zendaya and Maud Apatow, and there's so many great, talented young women on this set. And I'm curious, do you guys sit down and kind of talk about what the show is trying to put out there for viewers?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we're like, wow, what are we filming? But I think we always sit down and we're like, this is a very important story that we're telling for every single character, and we always support one another for everything that each of them are doing. And I think more, it was just we're waiting for the show to come out, waiting for everybody to see all the episodes and react in their own way and take it from there.
Yeah, because visually the show is stunning too.
Side note on that, the cinematography is amazing. Visually, it's stunning. And we would work so hard, and the DP and the crew worked tireless hours because of the crazy camera movements they would do. And I've never been on a set like that before, so it was so cool learning that there isn't just one way to do something. Like, you can test things and you can take it far, even on an HBO show. Like, we were given the ability to try new things, and I really love that.
Yeah, that's probably cool because each project and each director, you kind of learn something new, correct, about camera angles and how other people work.
Yeah, it's definitely wanted me to dive into the other side of the industry as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Would you be interested in trying? Would you start out with like a short film maybe, or do some?
I
writing?
don't know. I've been writing a little bit. I'd love to produce. I think I might want to direct, but I don't know if I would. I'm so OCD, so I'd be worried that might be like a year worth project. But I definitely want to just dive into as much as I can.
Well, what's great now is we're seeing people kind of, act in front of the camera and then also go behind the scenes and get involved in that way, even with Big Little Lies on HBO with Nicole Kidman and Reese Witherspoon. Are you noticing that, though, that there are more even, female writers and directors out there than there was before since you started? Because it kind of has been a little uptick now.
Yeah, I think that now we're being able to have the voice and the ability with especially all the different platforms that we have to create more content, and the industry is going in such a positive direction with female empowerment that everybody's encouraged to do what they want. And I love seeing female filmmakers and crew members. I think that we need more female DPs out there. But it's a very inspirational time.
Yeah, because right now I think it's just Rachel Morrison and Reed Morano, and you didn't get to. Did you work with Reed at all on Handmaid's Tale, or that was?
I did.
Oh, that's awesome. She's great, and she's kind of getting into film now too, which you have kind of explored both television and film, correct?
Yeah, I just finished Tarantino's new movie.
I know. We have to talk about that. She's in Tarantino's new movie, y'all, with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio. What was that like? Right? Tell us everything. Spill the goss.
Oh, I don't know if I can. It was so much fun. I mean, when you have that bucket list of everyone you hope that you can one day work with, and then you just cross them all off on the same exact day for like a couple months. It's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So it was just this surreal experience. I learned so much. Being on first name basis with the people that I'm working with now is crazy. Quint is an amazing, talented madman. I love him. And Brad is he's so humbled, and I learned so much respect from him, and Leo is just a crazy talented man. So being able to see him work was a dream come true.
Yeah, so you can't really tell us about your role, right?
I can't say anything about my role. I know, I hate it, because everybody's like, so tell me about your character, and I can't say a word about her.
And then Margot's in it too, Margot Robbie. Did you work with her at all, or?
I don't know if I can say if I worked with her, but I did meet her on set, and she's amazing.
Tarantino movies are so secretive. Were you in Cannes for the premiere?
I was filming Euphoria.
And you're like, I want to be there, but
I know, I really wanted to be there, but I was still filming.
Are you excited that it's getting it was going to get buzz no matter what, but it did get, I think, a standing ovation.
It did. I think it was like a 7-minute standing ovation.
It's a good sign at Cannes. Like, okay. Now, are you nervous to kind of, delve into both sides of the industry, like do movies and TV and kind of find a balance with your career?
Well, what's interesting is in the beginning, I only wanted to do movies. I didn't want to do TV. And it had nothing against either side. I just felt that movies were more real. And now I think with the direction that TV is going, especially with Big Little Lies, I think they definitely paved a way of TV and Handmaid's Tale. I love both now. I think that TV is now 8 or 10 mini movies, and I've been wanting to do both.
Yeah, it's true. And Euphoria, can you see there being more seasons after this first one? Because we're still kind of figuring out who each character is.
You definitely learn a lot this season, and I really hope that we get more seasons.
Well, that would be awesome. Well, I think there's a tweet, and then we have some questions from the audience. But let's check it out. If you could give Cassie any advice, what would it be?
I would tell Cassie to love yourself first, that you don't need the love from other people.
Because, yeah, we've seen a glimpse of her upbringing. She has a sister, and it seems like her mom might have some issues with substance abuse.
Very bad issues.
Yeah, so are we gonna?
Hilarious. I love her. She is so funny. Alana is amazing, and she just embraces that character. I loved working with her and Maud, but she definitely, as a character-wise, has some problems.
So we're gonna see that in your episode. Does Maud have an episode too?
No, she's intertwined with my episode.
Okay. All right, we have time for some questions. Who's first?
Hi, Sydney.
Hi.
I just want to say you're doing amazing.
Thank you.
I was wondering if Sam made you or the cast watch Assassination Nation, because I know he created that too, and it kind of has the same vibe. It feels as if it was in another town or high school. So yeah, what did you see that? Did you
He didn't make us watch it, but he did invite us all to the premiere, so we all got to see it, and we were like, oh wow, this is a cool movie version of us.
So yeah, I was wondering if is that you understood the vibe of you're going through from Assassination Nation?
Definitely, just even speaking from Sam, you got the vibe. You're like, okay, this is what we're making.
Time for here we go.
I was wondering if you had any creative influence over your character.
So I create my characters very interestingly. So I create books for my characters. And I create from the day they were born until the first page of the script. And it's this interactive timeline, journal, diary of their entire lives. And I try to keep them separate from myself as much as possible. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
So as soon as you get your character, you sit down and start writing what you think would be there. That's a cool way to do it.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
So my question is that we've seen since the start of this series, particularly in the pilot, that a lot of Cassie's arc has to do with her reputation and the image that has been painted of her by her peers. And we see a lot of that in the world today, and we even kind of see some of that with your character in Handmaid's Tale. And I wanted to know how you have drawn or connected your character's experiences to real experiences in the world.
Personally?
Yeah.
I think as a girl who recently was a teenage girl, when you have other people putting an image of who they think you are and you're still trying to figure out who you are yourself is a very relatable thing. And I think that's what Cassie is going through. She has so many people around her calling her a slut, calling her a whore, saying that this is who you are, but she doesn't know who she is yet. And I think on a very universal level, that's relatable.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
We have time for one more. Here we go.
Hi. So I was just wondering, have you been able to learn and grow from the situations and encounters that Cassie has, playing her? Have you been able to apply the lessons that she's learned into your own life?
I have. So Cassie's arc, unfortunately, I can't talk about, but playing through that and doing it was very therapeutic for me. And I definitely learned more about myself. I became more confident in myself and my body. And I've taken, like I said, I would tell Cassie to love herself before needing the love from other people. And I wish that I could have told my teenage self that, because I think as a teen girl or boy or anybody growing up, that you look for that confirmation from other people, and really that you don't need it. It should just be coming from yourself. And I learned that from Cassie.
That's great. Well, we can't wait to see her episode now, right?
Thank you.
But Euphoria airs on Sunday nights on HBO. And thank you so much to Sydney for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Talking to you.
Thank you.